Hare Krishna and welcome everyone to our class on the Nectar of Instruction, which is a verse by verse study course, the book written by Srila Rupa Goswami. Today we will be concluding our discussion on text number 3. This is the third part of our discussion on text number 3, third class. And in all, we are having this ninth class today on Nectar of Instruction. So today's topic would be following in the footsteps of sadhus and conclude this text by understanding some of the glories of Bhakti Yoga. Now let me invite Mangala Mataji from Bangalore to kindly lead us in the chanting of Mangala Sharan prayers. Mangala Mataji, please can you help us?
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Hare Krishna to all.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Yeah.
Om Ajnanatimirandascha Jnananjanaya Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Ena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Mena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapnadanatikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavancha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaguna Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padana Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitancha He Krishna Sindhu He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य च एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधरा श्री वासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा। थैंक यू प्रभु जी।
Thank you Mangala Mataji. Very nicely chanted the Mangala Charan prayers. Before the beginning of the class, I was telling to the devotees that the Mangala Charan will be recited by Mangala Mataji, so this will be Mangala Square. So double Mangal will be there in the class.
थैंक यू प्रभु जी।
Yeah. So thank you very much. And now let us move to the next part. And next part is the recap of the previous class, and that will be by His Grace Jivan Radha Govind Prabhu. So Jivan Radha Govind Prabhu is a devotee based in Bangalore. A very sincere, inspiring personality, and I am always very inspired by his enthusiastic participation of uh, his own participation in the devotional programs. Any class, any program, and you can certainly expect Jivan Radha Govind Prabhu to be present in the program. So a very enthusiastic, very determined devotee. Prabhuji recently took initiation from one of the uh, initiating gurus in our ISKCON society, and that is uh, His Holiness Jayapataka Maharaj. So I would like to invite His Grace Jivan Radha Govind Prabhu to kindly share the recap of the previous class now. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Kindly.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, Prabhuji.
Okay. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurvirmilataam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Shri Jayapadaka Swaminiti Namine Nama Acharya Padaya Nitai Kripapadayine Gaurakatadama Daya Nagaragamatharine Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvisesh Sunyavadi Pachat Desha Tarini Jai Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Siva Sadi Gaurabhakta Vranda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. First of all, I would like to thank Prabhuji for giving me this opportunity for presenting the recap. Avoiding things of unfavorable to bhakti, that is 6 urges and 6 vices, that is verse number 1 and 2, were covered in the previous classes, that is class number 1 to 6. Now we are doing the classes on adopting things that is favorable to bhakti. Verse number 3, 6 virtues, which goes like this. Utsaha nichayat dhairyat tat tat karma pravartanat sangatyaga sato vritti shadbir bhakti prasiddhyati. Enthusiasm or eagerness, utsahan. Nichayat is confidence or firm faith. Dhairyat is patience or fortitude. Tat karma pravartana means principles favorable to bhakti, that is regulative principles, Ravam, Kirtanam, etc. Sangatyaga means abandoning the bad association. Sato vritte is following the previous acharyas. These 6 activities assure advancement in bhakti without any hindrance. This is the thing which we are now daily. Out of this, Utsahan, virtue number 1, being enthusiastic, and number 2, Nichayat, endeavoring with confidence, was covered in the previous week to last week. That is 2 classes they were covered. Also, apart from these 2 topics, detailed presentation was given by our Prabhu on the science and glory of bhakti and the 9 process of bhakti. In the last class, number 2, the next 3 virtues, namely dhairya, patience or fortitude. Second, number 2, tat karma pravartana, that is following the regulative principles. Number 3, sangatyaga, giving up bad association in bhakti, were taken up for presentation and explained by Prabhuji in a nice way. Let me come to first point, number dhairya. Dhairya or patience or fortitude. Dhairya means patience or fortitude. Dhairya means fortitude, to hold on to something firmly, especially in the practice of bhakti in the midst of obstacles. Dhairya means patience during practice stage of bhakti, even when there is a delay in attaining one's desired goal. It also means dhairya or patience also means firm conviction that the path of bhakti is the sole constitutional path of for all the jivas. Dhairya also means determination to remain on the path of bhakti without slackening one's execution. Actually, I want to give one example. Of course, this was not given in the class. I have heard in some other lecture. Haridasa Thakura, he was actually one of the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he said, regardless of my body is cut into pieces, and even if my life exists from my body, I will never abandon the chanting of Harinama. This is the reference from Chaitanya Bhagavata 1.16.94. Prabhupada also explained and described in his purport 3 ways in which the passions has to be practiced to promote spiritual development. The first method is to hear from spiritual master patiently, especially at the stage of learning from him. This involves reading of scriptural books like Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, etc. Patiently, resolve our doubts properly by following up by doing the counter questioning, etc. from the spiritual master. Second stage, once we get the instructions properly and once we digest them, now there comes the application portion, that is applying the instruction in the execution part. We need to show passions at this stage also. For example, we have been asked to do the prescribed number of rounds of chanting. We should follow it strictly without taking it our own decision to reduce the number of rounds. Number 3, depend on the mercy of the spiritual master and Krishna. Once we have learned and executed the instruction, we wait for the result. That is, we wait for some transformation within us in our outlook, change in our lifestyle through our understanding. At this stage also, we should wait patiently for the mercy of spiritual master and Lord Krishna before we expect the result of our endeavor. The example of Damodar Lila was given in the class by our Prabhu. 2-finger rope shot. One finger, actually, when Yashoda Mataji wanted to tie Lord Krishna at the time of butter thieving, then at that time, when she wanted to tie with the ropes, it was shot by 2 fingers. One finger represents our endeavor, and the other finger represents the Lord's mercy. In order to explain the concept of dhairya, 2 metaphors, one doctor and patient, and second, the husband and wife, and one example from Prabhupada's life was given. Actually, when you go for a when some patient goes for treatment or for some illness or sickness from the doctor, the doctor prescribes and he has to wait for the complete, whatever treatment he gives, it has to be undergone patiently, and there is a sort of a delay. The time will be there. Here, the doctor is compared to Lord Krishna and the spiritual master. Sickness is our material sickness. Patients are the living entities, and the treatment is the devotion or bhakti, or the following the devotional process. Metaphor number 2, a newly married couple definitely cannot expect offspring immediately after marriage. This was also explained by Prabhu. Third thing is the example. Prabhupada started Krishna conscious movement single-handedly with no initial response, but because it was continued with patience, people started participating eagerly. Srila Prabhupada, in his biography, he has read the first chapter itself is named Lifetime of Preparation. That is, patience or dhairya is a critical factor in the development of bhakti. Next, let us go to Tat Karma Pravartana, that is the 4th virtue. Executing the regulative principles. The points are as follows. Pravartana means executing, enforcing, applying bhakti through regulative principles. Prabhupada gives the definition as enthusiastically, faithfully, and strictly follow all the principles that nourish bhakti. It is also termed as bhakti poshana karma. Prabhupada also quotes, neglect or laxity in following the regulative instruction will check one's progress in bhakti. Third point is, regulative principles are described in terms of prescriptions, vritti, which we have to, that is called the niyama, and the prohibitions, that is nisheda or yama. Prescriptions are vidhi, means hearing, that we have to do that, follow the regulative instruction, that is that Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Achanam, Mandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, the Atma Nivedanam. The 9 process have to be followed. Next, prohibitions is nisheda. 4 regulative principles are included. That is, no meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling, and no illicit sex. Shravanam is the first and most important out of the 9 devotional processes. The points are, one must learn here from authorized people as suggested in Bhagavad Gita 4.34 and also Mundaka Upanishad 1.2.12. This was also explained by Prabhuji. And also Prabhuji gave a very nice statement. You can see God by ears, not by eyes. Then the 4th point is 3 possible ways by which we can neglect the regulative instruction, which should be avoided. The first one is dilution or reducing. Sometimes we dilute them. Instead of prescribed rounds, this example was given from the chanting. prescribed rounds of chanting by spiritual master, we whimsically reduce the number of rounds, and this is not correct. This is known as a dilution. This is not the correct practice, and we should do the prescribed rounds. The second one is the contamination, adding something. In the same example mentioned above, suppose somebody adds another mantra which is not authorized at all. This is also not the correct practice. The third one is the perversion or the distorting. Taking the same example of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, somebody changes the Mahamantra and starts chanting some other entirely different mantra which is not authorized in the Parampara scriptures. This is also not the correct practice and should be stopped. And the Mahamantra authorized should be practiced. Now let us come to this fifth virtue, Sangatyaga, that is giving up bad association. The same was covered in verse number 2 as Janasanga, association with worldly minded people. Since giving up the bad association is a very, very important aspect for promoting the spiritual development, again it is included in verse number 3 as Sangatyaga to emphasize this thing. Repetition is not a mistake, but it is for emphasis. Here it is being again, this same point is given as Sangatyaga, even though it was given previous sloka also as Janasanga. According to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one of the general principles of Vaishnavism is Asasangatyaga, Vaishnava Achara, meaning characteristically a Vaishnava is one who gives up the association of worldly people or non-devotees. A Vaishnava should always keep away from bad association. The third point is undesirable or bad association also includes the company of karmis, jnanis, yogis, non-devotees, atheists, opposite gender, and also pseudo religion. It was also nicely examined by means of a diagram. We may dilute our enthusiasm by associating with these three people, with this group of people. Karmis philosophy, they have no belief in the mercy of the Lord. They think that by their own endeavor, they will be able to achieve whatever they desire. They don't depend on the mercy of the Lord. Jnanis, they want to reject the entire world. Their philosophy is, their philosophy is mithya. That is, they want to take renunciation from this world. They aspire to merge with the impersonal Brahma Jyoti of the absolute truth, where they will find Shanti. This is not the correct philosophy. Yogis are more interested in mystic power or attaining siddhis, etc. Non-devotees, anti-devotees, they are blasphemous towards Lord. For example, the example of Kamsa, Ravana, and Hiranyakasipu was also mentioned in the class. Atheists, they think there is no God. This is also not the correct philosophy. So this is against our philosophy. Opposite gender, associating very carefully only on need basis, mainly for executional devote service, preferably husband and wife. Pseudo religionists, people who come with their own religion, this is also unauthorized. Next point in this particular thing is, though we may come across various categories of people mentioned above, still we should not look down upon these people. We should totally keep away from the philosophy of the people, not totally from the person himself or hate them. And actually, Prabhuji gave a nice thing, hate the sin, not the sinner. Analogy of a person infected with with a disease was nicely explained in the class. Example, social distance from, suppose some person is affected with this also explained in the class. So social distance from a COVID affected person with a mask. That is the idea, is not to avoid the total contact with that person so that we do not get infected. We should similarly in the life, we may come across with people. Our philosophy is very important. We should be very strictly sticking to our philosophy, and we should not at any cost. We should get into their philosophy. That's why we should keep a distance, just like we are keeping a distance with a COVID affected person. A Vaishnava is respectful to everyone, including even the ant crawling on the ground. What to speak of a human being? This was also nicely explained. Classification of three types of association. One is a devotional friendship, non-devotional. Number two is non-devotional. Third thing is anti-devotional. Devotional association, actually, if we have devotional association, then it nourishes our devotion. And non-devotional association, neither they are in neither favor nor in against devotion. They are neutral. They are open-minded people. They are willing to consider devotion as a path for following in that life. We need to have a relation of mercy with them. We can give them knowledge by giving them scriptural books to read and all. We can ask them to start the chanting. We can slowly try to convert them as devotees. So we don't have to, we should deal them with a sense of mercy. Anti-devotional, that is association, that should be avoided. This means associating with a person having anti-devotional tendency who is not following the four regulative principles and they are blaspheming the Lord. We don't have to disrespect them, but still we have to avoid them. Next, actually, again, what is the from the proposition of Sangatyaga, what type of association we should have? The closest association, or close association, or formal association, or conflicting association, formal association. These things were nicely explained. Closest association, this type of association, if we have such type of close association with the devotee, in this type of closest association, we really feel encouraged, enthused, and we really feel very much taken care. We feel the warmth and we can feel their affection and all with whom we are having the association. This type of affection we should keep closest. Then close association, our style of executing bhakti and the person with whom we are having a close association, it may not gel easily. So one may do more of kirtan. We may be interested more in service or more in scripture reading and all that. See, so it does not match. But still, definitely, because they are all devotees, we can have a close relationship with them. That will be helpful. Formal relation, normally we can have formal relation with our office colleagues and all that. And conflicting association, it means that is either open conflict or polite conflict. Still, it is better to maintain a distance with them. It is, it is better. We have to be maintain a distance from them. Now, actually, again, finally, Prabhu gave a quote from Rupa Goswami's this thing, he has given this thing to whom he should have a close association or closest association. It was nicely explained by a verse from Rupa Goswami, which goes like this: Swajati achaye snigde sadho sangha sato vare. We should try to have either closest or close association, at least one devotee who is a sadhu with the same path of bhajan as oneself. Always affectionate due to their soft-hearted, merciful, more advanced and realized nature. We can easily relish the mellow of devotion by seeing him, touching him, speaking with him, and hearing Harikatha from them. Thank you very much. Maybe my presentation has taken a little more time than was really allowed by Prabhuji. I am sorry for the same. In case if I have committed some mistakes, I may please be corrected, and I request Prabhuji to correct it. Thank you everyone for giving a patient hearing. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you, Jivan Prabhuji. Thanks a lot. All points very nicely covered. Yeah, thanks a lot. Okay, now let us move to the regular class, the third part of the text number 3. So I will quickly come to the point on the text number 3 and straight away take you to the uh, overview map of this text, and will try to bring to your notice what till what point we have covered and what point we are going to cover in this particular class. So like you see here, we have 3 plus 3, 6 and 3, 9. 9 sections in text number 3. So we have covered till 7th, where Sangatyag. And Prabhu now gave a reasonably well summary of the previous class. So you would know that till Sangatyag we have already covered. Now we are going to discuss on sato vritti and glories of bhakti yoga. So let me start the discussion on sato vritti. So sato vritti, which is the translation is the following the footsteps of the previous acharyas, or you can say the following the footsteps uh, of sadhus or very exalted devotees from the past. That is actually the translation of the word sato vritti. It comprises of two words, sat and vritti. So sat means uh, those people who are following the path of Sat. So Sato actually stands for sadhus or exalted devotees. And why they are called Sat? Because they are following the path of Sat. And what is the path of Sat? The path of Sat actually is uh, 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 for example, we have in from Bhagavad Gita we know Sat and Asat. So Sat means eternal and Asat means which is not eternal. So eternal is something holding on to those values in life which take us towards mortality, which take us towards eternality. And if we hold on to those values in life which take us to mortality or once again take us to the cycle of birth and death, that is the path of Asat. So devotees or sadhus or exalted saintly people, they have this inclination to follow the path of Sat. So vritti, the word vritti stands for inclination. Their their propensity, their what they like to do in their life. Huh? So that is what inclination means. So sato vritti. So sato vritti means when we see the now let me explain you here. Sato vritti is something as I was mentioning. Sato means sadhu and vritti means two things. Now sadhu could also be classified into two categories typically. One is the classification could be that a sadhu could be a grahastha. Grahastha means he's a householder. Householder, uh, grahastha would mean that he is a married person, will have a children, will maintain a house. Probably he is also working outside in an occupation, in a profession, and whatever. So that is grahastha. And another uh, type of sadhu could be a sannyasi. Sannyasi means a person who has renounced the active worldly life and he is now fully into the preaching or into the propagation of the uh, message of bhakti or message of Bhagavad Gita and books like that. So sadhus could be of two categories, grihastha and sannyasi. Similarly, vritti could mean two possible have two aspects to it. So one is propensity and another one is lifestyle. Hmm. So propensity means inclination, as in the previous slide I was mentioning, inclination. So inclination could be understood by two possible things. One way to understand inclination is whatever is their propensity. How what do they like to do? What is their nature? What is their swabhav? What they actually like to uh, do in their life. So for example, a brahmana will have its swabhav, a kshatriya will have its own swabhav, similarly a vaishya will have its swabhav. So vritti stands for propensity. Then uh, according to the propensity you will see they will have a lifestyle also. They will like to lead a life in a particular way. So in Hindi you call it jivan shaili. So that is lifestyle. Now combining the two, we understand or we give the definition of the word satovritti as way in which a sadhu has spent his or her life. way in which a sadhu has spent his or her life. So sadhu, you understand, those are the people who follow the path of sat, who follow the path of eternality. And vritti actually stands for how they actually execute that path. How do they lead that lifestyle in their own lives? That is something which combine together as sato vritti. And if we want to give a one line definition, then it can be given like this: way in which a sadhu has spent his or her life. So Srila Prabhupada, in the purport of this text number 3 in Nectar of Instruction, he defines sattva-vritti like this. This is actually verbatim from the purport in the book. He says this is called sattva-vritti, and this he mentions this line he gives after giving certain examples, and I will take the examples in the next slide. So he says this is called sattva-vritti, or following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas, who expertly filled every moment of time with Krishna conscious activities. So here you can understand, expertly filled every moment of time with Krishna conscious activities. Hmm. So now you can understand that these are people who have certain inclinations, and they are Krishna conscious people, they are devotees. They want to follow the path of eternality, they want to follow the path which can take them towards their beloved Lord Krishna. And while doing that, they lead a particular lifestyle, and the way they lead their lifestyle, we as devotees, we as practicing devotees, can actually take example or can actually take inspiration from the way they lead their life. And Srila Prabhupada actually very briefly gives certain examples in their purport. In the So there is only a one small paragraph that Srila Prabhupada has given for the purport, and that explains Sattva-vritti. And he gives certain examples, and in the examples he makes some four arguments he gave. He says that, for example, rising early in the morning by 4 a.m., similarly attending Mangal Aarti. Mm. When you wake up early in the early in the in the morning, then you take bath, and then you go to the temple to attend Mangal Aarti. So that is attend Mangal Aarti. Then read Srimad Bhagavatam and perform Kirtana. So he has given some broad four examples to explain what actually Satovritti means. So Satovritti, as I was mentioning, the way sadhus lead their life, their lifestyle. And so they have some internal mood, they have some internal propensity. At the same time, they want to follow the path of Sat. They want to follow the path which takes them to the Supreme Lord. And in doing that, according to their propensity, they actually do certain activities in their own lives. And like that, this is something which becomes like sato vritti, or following in the footsteps. Now, uh, in order to understand sato vritti, as I was explaining to you, Srila Prabhupada has given very briefly about it, following in the footsteps of sadhus. But in our parampara, there is one another Vaishnava Acharya has come. His name is Srila Bhaktivinod Thakur. Now, how Bhaktivinod Thakur is related with Srila Prabhupada? So, Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Abhaycharanarvind Swami Prabhupada, His Divine Grace, founder Acharya of SCON, his spiritual master's name was His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhant Saraswati Thakur. So, Bhakti Siddhant Saraswati Thakur's father's name is Srila Bhaktivinod Thakur. So, Srila Bhaktivinod Thakur is known as one of those pioneering acharyas in Gaudiya Vaishnava Parampara, who actually laid the foundation stone of, who actually laid all the foundational work to establish this Krishna conscious movement the way you see today. So Srila Bhaktivinod Thakur did a lot of work in his days. Then Srila Bhakti Siddhant Saraswati further continued that effort. And then our Srila Prabhupada, by way of establishing ISKCON, continued that work further. So, why I'm mentioning about Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur? Because Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written several essays on each of these virtues: utsaha, nischaya, dhairyat, tat tat karma pravartanat, sang tyagat, sato vritti. He has written individual essays on each of these virtues. And if you want to understand sato vritti in a little much more detail, then it might be worthwhile to read the essay of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur on sato vritti. So in sato vritti essay that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written, he has further elaborated on these examples. So like you saw these examples of rising early in the morning, attending Mangala Arati, reading Srimad Bhagavatam, and so on. Now what Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has given is examples for householders, examples for renunciants. Yeah. So as I was mentioning to you in the previous slides, so you understood that satovritti is way in which a sadhu has spent his or her life. Now sadhu can be of two types, grahastha and sannyasi. So grahastha will have its own propensity, will have its own inclination, and will have its own lifestyle. Grahastha will have its own lifestyle. Similarly, a sannyasi will have its own propensity and will have its own lifestyle. So when you will see the satovritti of a grahastha and when you will see the satovritti of a sannyasi, you will find some difference. So, following in the footsteps of a grahastha sadhu will be a somewhat different and compared to the following into the footsteps of of a sannyasi sadhu. So that could be a little bit different. And some of these lifestyle points or lifestyle ways could be similar between both grahastha and sannyasis. So when Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written that essay, he has given a very long list, elaborate list. Actually, I wanted to share that list also with you in the class, but while I was compiling that list, I found that the list was so long that it would not be possible for me to explain each and every point from that list. But I would like to read few of those points from the list that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has given in his essay. So, first of all, about the Grahastha devotees, like examples that he has given. So, for a Grahastha, the first of all, what he has to do is he has to find a suitable wife so that together with the wife he can execute the devotional service properly. Then the second point about his lifestyle is that he has to earn a living in a pious way, in a pure way. Then he should be willing and he should be enthusiastic about studying the bhakti shastras, the bhakti scriptures. Then he should be very, very enthusiastic about serving the devotees. Serving the devotees means he should invite the devotees at his house, serve them, hear from them, and so on. Then he should be very, very transparent in his dealings. He should be honest in his dealings. He should be uh, uh, very simple in his dealings. That is, the grahastha should be like that. He should be enthusiastic to serve the seniors or people who are of elderly age, elders in the family. He should be very enthusiastic to serve. He should be willing to serve for the betterment of all. He should be uh, willing to serve others and serve in a way that actually help others. He should be always be in the mood of helping others. Like that, there is a lot of there's a list of I think almost 15-16 points you can find for grahastha sadhus. Uh, so this is the now you can understand from the list that this is the sato vritti, this is the lifestyle of a grahastha sadhu. Similarly, lifestyle propensity of a sannyasi sadhu is somewhat different. Now, what would be the lifestyle of a sannyasi sadhu? He should be always be chanting the holy name of the Lord. He should always be enthusiastic about chanting the holy names of the Lord, while looking for his food, because sannyasi has renounced his family life. So he should be looking for food by asking and by begging from door to door. He should go door to door, beg for food, and that's how uh, he should sustain his own life for food. He should never be dependent on others, because sannyasi doesn't have an occupation or has a job, has a professional activity outside in the world. He's a sannyasi, he's a renunciate. So he should not, at any point in time of his life, he should not become dependent on others. Similarly, he should uh, not have the desire to taste uh, a different kind of foods. So he should feel satisfied in whatever he has been offered by somebody else, by a householder. He should never expect honor. He should never expect that I will be honored. Rather, he should always be willing to honor others. Uh, he should never live in his own village. He should never live with his own relatives like that. Now you can see uh, uh, this is uh, this is the list of requirements of lifestyle requirements for a sannyasi sadhu. So this is, now you can see that sato vritti means that each of these sadhus have a lifestyle, and a aspiring devotee and a person who is actually following the footsteps of the sadhus can, according to his own propensity, according to his own lifestyle, if he's a householder, he should follow the lifestyle of a householder sadhu. If he is a renunciant, he should actually try to follow the lifestyle of a renunciant sadhu. So that is what sato vritti actually means. So I hope that gives you a clear idea of this sixth virtue, which is sato vritti. Now let us move to the next part of our class, which is the concluding part. And Srila Prabhupada concludes this purport on text number 3 by defining some of the glories of bhakti yoga. So some of these glories of bhakti yoga we might have touched upon in our discussion in Bhagavad Gita in the past, or if it, while discussing some other topic in the past. But now here, the special part is that when we are defining these glories of bhakti yoga, we should understand that we should understand these glories of bhakti yoga in a way that enhances our faith. So in the previous class, we had discussed about Utsaha, Nishchaya, Dhairyat. Three virtues we had discussed. And the second virtue is Nishchay. Nishchay, when I described you, Nishchay means faith. So here, uh, in this purport, Srila Prabhupada is defining the glories of Bhakti Yoga, but we can also understand this particular part, the concluding part of this particular purport, this particular text, that uh, a devotee should have faith that the path of bhakti yoga is perfect. Path of bhakti yoga will give me full protection. Path of bhakti yoga is full of profit. The amount of profit that we see in the path of bhakti yoga is unparalleled. We don't see that kind of profit in another path. Path of bhakti yoga is very, very powerful, powerful than any other path. Path of bhakti yoga is productive. Whatever benefit we get from this path of bhakti yoga, we actually cannot get from any other path. And finally, path of bhakti yoga is very, very pure. Now what I am trying to say is that this concluding purport by Srila Prabhupada you can understand in two possible ways. One possible way is that this is what Prabhupada is defining as the glories of Bhakti Yoga. That Bhakti Yoga is very, very exalted. Bhakti Yoga is very, very special. But at the same time, you can also understand this concluding part as an extension of the discussion that we started for the virtue of Nishchaya, virtue of faith. So in faith, what did we discuss? In the virtue of faith, or in the virtue of Nishchaya, we discussed primarily three things. What we discussed that we should have faith in the spiritual master in the scriptures. That was one point. Second point was we should have faith in the path of bhakti yoga. That was the second point. The third point was we should have faith that the other paths are not going to give us the result of what we will get in the path of bhakti yoga. So that is in nutshell, in brief, we discussed in the section of nishchaya as a virtue. Now you can also understand this particular section, which is the conclusion, and we are calling it as the glories of bhakti yoga, as an extension to that particular section of nishchaya. So as I was explaining, we should have confidence only in bhakti yoga, that bhakti yoga is perfect, bhakti yoga protects, bhakti yoga gives a lot of profit, bhakti yoga is powerful, bhakti yoga is productive, and bhakti yoga is pure. So these 6 points, you can summarize these last portion of this particular purport in these 6 sections. So I will take one section at a time, and what I will do is I have taken the statement of Srila Prabhupada from the purport, and then have tried to explain that with the help of certain references, uh, certain verses from the scriptures. Now, glories of bhakti yoga, the first glory is perfection. Or the first faith is that we should be very confident, we should be very determined that bhakti yoga is perfect path. What Prabhupada writes in the purport is like this. Prabhupada says engagement in bhakti is the life and soul of the living entity. It is the desired goal and supreme perfection of human life. So I will repeat the second line once again. It is the desired goal and supreme perfection of human life. So what does it mean? It means that the path of bhakti yoga is the perfect path. And we should have this faith that we are on the path which is perfect, which does not have any defect, which does not have any ifs, any buts, and so on. If we sincerely follow this path, the path is perfect itself, that it will fulfill our uh, it will take us to our desired goal. uh, and that is something which is not present in other paths. In other paths means path of karma yoga, path of jnana yoga, path of dhyana yoga. So these paths are not perfect, but the path compared to the path of bhakti yoga. And how do I explain that? I explain that with the help of a verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, the verse goes like this: Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Kahe Sudrida Nishchaya Krishna Bhakti Kaile Sarva Karma Krit Haya. Now you can see here the word Nishchay is coming. Nishchay means faith or confidence. So uh, Nishchaya means faith is explained here, where the word Shraddha is coming. So, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, actually, this verse is defining what is meant by Shraddha. Hmm. So, Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Kahe Sudrida Nishchaya. Hmm. So, Shraddha means what? Shraddha means two things. Vishwas. Vishwas means confidence, and Sudrida Nishchaya. Sudrida Nishchaya means firm faith. And what is that firm faith? Firm faith is Krishna Bhakti Kaile Sarva Karma Krit Hai. That if you are doing Krishna Bhakti, if you are rendering devotional service, transcendental loving service to Lord Krishna, then Sarva Karma Krit Hai. One automatically performs all subsidiary activities. All subsidiary activities. Now, what are all subsidiary activities? There could be many subsidiary activities, like we may have our duty towards our parents, we may have our duty towards our nation, we may have our duty towards our family, and so on. There could be many activities, many duties that we may have. But here the definition given about shraddha or about faith is that shraddha means confidence and firm faith that by rendering transcendental loving service to Lord Krishna, one automatically sarva karma krit hai. One automatically performs all subsidiary activities. One automatically performs. Now, see, we need to understand this word faith. Here, when we are giving this definition of faith, we are giving this definition of faith in one particular item, and that particular item is Krishna Bhakti Kaile. When we are on the path of spirituality, when we are path on transcendence, we can have faith in multiple things. We can have faith in multiple things. What are those examples? We can have faith that I am not this body, I am a spirit soul. Yeah? My faith could be that Krishna is supreme personality of Godhead. Hmm? Krishna is Param Bhagavan. My faith could be this. My faith could be that my spiritual master is the most exalted devotee. So the faith could have multiple dimensions when we are on the path of devotional service, or when we are on the path of spirituality. Our faith can be of many different ways. But here in this particular definition, the faith has been talked in a very specific way, and that specific way is Krishna Bhakti Kaile Sarva Karma Krit Hai. That by rendering transcendental loving service to Krishna, one automatically performs all subsidiary activities. And such a faith is favorable to discharge of devotional service. Now, I will give you more insight into uh, what is meant by rendering transcendental loving service to Krishna. So, how to understand this? There is a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam which gives this analogy of uh, pouring water on the root of tree, and it also gives an analogy of giving food to the stomach. Hmm. So it says, Yatha taror mool nishechanena tripyanti tat skand bhujopashakha प्राणोपहाराश्च च यथेन्द्रियाणाम तथैव सर्वाहरणम achyuteja. So this verse is from Srimad Bhagavatam, and what it says is Yatha taror mool nishechanena. Mool means root, nishechanena means watering. In English, you have this word called irrigation. When you have a land, you have a farm, you irrigate the farm, you irrigate the land means you put water in the land or in the farm. Why do we do so? Because we want to grow the plants in the farm. So yatha taror mool nishechanena tripyanti tat skandha bhujopashakha. Hmm? Skandha means the stem, the trunk of the tree. Bhujopashakha. Shakha means the branches of the tree, and so on. So this verse is saying, like when we are pouring water in the root of the tree, then automatically the trunk, the branches, the twigs, etc., everything in the tree actually gets nourished. We don't have to water the twigs separately, we don't have to water the stem separately, we don't water have to water the trunk separately. No, simply if we water the root of the tree, everything, the water actually reaches the whole tree. Everything, the leaves, the flowers, the fruits, every part of the tree it reaches. And in order to explain this, it further gives another analogy. Like when we supply food to the stomach, pranoha para pranoha prano paharach cha yathendriyanam ahar aharascha cha yathendriyanam. Just like supplying food to the stomach and the senses and the limbs of the body. So when we supply the food to the stomach, it reaches to the all the limbs of the body. Tathaiv sarvaharanam achyuteja. And like that, simply worshipping Lord Achyuta automatically satisfies all the demigods. Simply worshipping Lord Achyuta automatically satisfies all the demigods. Like that. So as I was explaining to you, that we may have faith in multiple things when we are on the path of spirituality. We may have faith in some philosophy, in some other aspect of spirituality, and so on. But when we are talking about that, we have this faith that only by performing bhakti to Lord Krishna, uh, we will actually achieve the desired result of all other activities. That is the kind of faith we are talking about here. And in that case, we are giving this example of watering the root of the tree. If we simply water the root of the tree, everything nourishes. If we simply give food to the stomach, all the body part get nourishes. Similarly, simply by performing devotional service to Lord Krishna, all other occupational activities or our duties are actually fulfilled. Now, how this happens, this is something which is which is very mystical and which is very special about devotional service. Why? So it is not very difficult to understand. In Bhagavad Gita, we have understood where Lord Krishna says that aham sarvasya prabhavo, huh? Aham sarvasya prabhavo, matta sarvam pravartate. I am actually the root of everything, and everything actually comes from me. So, from that definition, if we simply serve the root, everything else will be satisfied. How do we understand this practically? We understand this practically that when we perform devotional service, when we hear about the Lord, when we glorify the Lord, when we remember the Lord, we internally feel very satisfied. We internally feel automatically feel very satisfied, and by that we can understand how this principle of bhakti yoga actually works. As I was mentioning to you, that this is something which is a bit mystical. How this works, we cannot really explain by our ordinary intelligence. But philosophically, if we understand that Krishna actually is the root of everything, Krishna is the Sarva Karan Karanam, he is the root. And if we simply serve him, simply provide our devotional service to him, everything else will be satisfied. So, this is something which we cannot really understand with our own intelligence. It is a mystical aspect of bhakti. Now, moving to the next part. So, what are the different parts? One was uh, perfection, that we are on this perfect path of bhakti. The second one is protection. Protection means uh, here Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport of the in this particular text, he says the devotees of the Lord, however, never fall down. Hmm. That is what Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport. The devotees of the Lord, however, never fall down. Now, this sometimes sounds very surprising. How can we say that if we are devotee of the Lord, we will never fall down? No, we have to understand this in a in a different way. See, as living entities, we are all having free will. Yeah. So while we are performing devotional service, it is possible that we fall down from our path of devotional service at certain point in our life because of some reasons or whatever. We may find ourselves getting uh, disinterested or uninterested in the following the path of devotional service. So we cannot say, like Prabhupada is saying, that the devotees of the Lord, however, never fall down. That fall down can happen on a temporary basis in the life of a devotee, because a devotee also has a free will, and he may choose to leave the path of devotional service in his or her life in the future. But we have to understand it. And Prabhupada, in order to make that point, he mentions Srimad Bhagavad Gita, this verse where Lord Krishna says, Konteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. So in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says that, "O Arjuna, please declare that my bhakta, my devotee, never pranashyati. My devotee is never perished. There is never he never fall down." That's what Lord Krishna says. And I was explaining to you that it is possible to fall down because living entity has its own free will. So how do we understand it? We can understand it in this way, that devotional service is a is an experience which is uh, which gives a very higher taste, which gives a taste to the practitioner, which is very very sweet, which is very very satisfying. uh. So the taste that we get in bhakti compared to other paths are Gyan Yoga, Dhyan Yoga, and so on. So compared to other paths, the taste we get in bhakti is what has two parts. It is easily achievable and it is readily relishable. It is easily achievable and it is readily relishable. What is meant by easily achievable and readily relishable? Easily achievable means that you, when you are on the path of bhakti, when you start doing devotional service the way it has been explained in the scriptures, you start to get this higher taste very easily. Very easily you start to get this taste, you start enjoying it. And readily relishable means that it doesn't take much time to relish it. Uh, you don't have to wait for very long period of time to actually relish this particular taste. However, in other paths, for example Gyan Yoga, how do you perform Gyan Yoga? You do meditation. You do meditation, you actually contemplate on the impersonal feature of the Lord, which is not possible to understand by senses and so on. So even after prolonged meditation, I am Brahman, aham Brahmasmi, uh, you really don't get lot of taste, and neither uh, that taste comes very easily to you. Uh, so the point is that when one is performing bhakti, the taste it starts to get is easily achievable and it is readily relishable. Now, after performing bhakti for a short period of time, for example, if a devotee falls down means it deviates from its path. He says that nothing doing, I'm not going to do this devotional service. I don't understand this. I don't like it, whatever XYZ. And he actually gets distracted from the path of following the devotional service. Now, what happens now is that he starts to explore something else. Either he might go back to his own material world, once again, material life, and so on, or he might want to try some other path of meditation or some other path of maybe dhyan yoga or whatever. But what generally happens is that whatever short period of time he actually performed this bhakti, his experience of bhakti was so sweet and his experience of bhakti was so rich that ultimately he comes back once again to perform this devotional service. The taste is so potent that even if he falls down, he will not enjoy the material pleasures in his deviated path. Uh, and ultimately he will return back to bhakti. It may happen within this lifetime, or it may happen in the next lifetime, and so on. So that richness in the taste of bhakti is so potent that actually it protects the devotee, and ultimately the devotee comes back to its original path. And we can understand this particular aspect of bhakti by two statements by two Vaishnavacharyas. One is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and one is our own Srila Prabhupada. So what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying, he's saying a bhakta is haunted by the ghost of rasa. Now what is this rasa? This rasa is that higher taste of bhakti that one gets when he gets engaged in the process of devotional service. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying that the bhakta is always haunted by this ghost of rasa. So it's a little humorous way of presenting that concept, that that rasa of bhakti never always chases you, always haunts you, and you always want to once again relish that rasa again and again. So even if you get distracted from your path, you once again want to come back to your path. Similarly, Srila Prabhupada also makes this statement: Krishna consciousness is like a terminal disease. Is like a terminal disease. Now, what does it mean? Once you get this disease of Krishna consciousness, actually Krishna consciousness is not a disease. Is it's a it's a boon. It's a boon to a individual if he gets this potency of Krishna consciousness or practice of Krishna consciousness. But here, Srila Prabhupada is comparing Krishna consciousness to a terminal disease. Now, terminal disease, what is the characteristic of a terminal disease? That if somebody who is an unfortunate person gets this terminal disease, then death is sure. Death is sure. Here, Srila Prabhupada, when he says Krishna consciousness is a terminal disease, he's trying to say that once somebody is into the fold of Krishna Bhakti in Krishna consciousness, ultimately he is going to achieve his desired goal. Ultimately, he is going to go back to Godhead one fine day, for sure. That is what it is saying. Krishna consciousness is a terminal disease. So, glories of Bhakti Yoga is that it is protecting, it protects. Once you are on the path, the process of bhakti yoga will actually make sure that you one fine day you are actually back to your desired goal. Hmm. So here Srila Prabhupada in the paragraph also writes, devotional service is so pure and perfect that once having begun, one is forcibly dragged to ultimate success. So that is the protective nature of bhakti yoga. Hmm. So the devotee has this firm faith that the path that I am following is not only perfect, but it will protect me. It will protect me. So that is the nishchaya, that is the faith that a devotee has. Moving to the third point, so we covered perfection, we covered protection. Now we come to the third point, which is profit. So here, uh, Prabhupada is writing, as I was explaining to you, devotional service is so pure and perfect that once having begun, one is forcibly dragged to success. So what is the profit part here? Protection part is that you don't lose anything. That is the protection part. And profit part is that ultimately you manage to reach your goal. That is the profit part. And in order to explain this point, the Prophet, Srila Prabhupada gives this example of Bhagavad Gita, verse number 2.40. He says, Neha bikramo nasho asti pratyavayo na vidyate swalpam api asya dharmasya trayato mahato bhayat. He's saying, Neha abhikrama nasho asti. That in this path there is no nash, and there is no loss. Uh, pratyavayo na vidyate, neither there is any diminution, neither there is any reduction, neither there is any reduction, then neither nor there is any loss. Swalpam api asya dharmasya. So swalpam api asya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. So it protects us from the greatest danger. Only if we do swalpam api asya dharmasya, only if we do swalpa, only if we do a little advancement on this path, then it protects us from the biggest danger. So the first line of this verse is actually talking about what? It is talking about there is no loss. So it protects us. There is no loss. Like when we get an insurance, we are protected that we will not lose our money. We are protected. But the second line is profit. Swalpam api asya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. That it will protect us from the greatest type of fear. A little advancement on this path can protect one from the greatest type of fear. Similarly, in order to understand this profit part, the profit aspect, there is another verse from Srimad Bhagavatam which says, Tyaktva swadharmam charnambujam harer bhajan apakvo भजन अपक्वो थ पते ततो यदि यत्र क्वा अभद्रम अभुत अमुष्य किम को वार्थ आपतो भजताम स्वधर्मतः. So the first line is Tyaktva swadharmam charnambujam harer. Harer stands for Hari, Supreme Lord. Charnambujam means lotus feet of Hari. So if we leave our swadharma of worshipping the lotus feet of Hari, Tyaktva means leaving, renouncing. One who has forsaken his material occupation to engage in the devotional service of the Lord. So if somebody renounces his swadharma, his material occupation, so for example, if somebody is a doctor or somebody is a husband or somebody is a student, so the swadharma of a student is to study. Swadharma of a doctor is to cure patients and so on. So even if we leave our Swadharma in order to engage in the devotional service of Supreme Lord Hari, bhajanna apakvot patet tato yadi. Even if we are somewhat weak in our bhajan, weak in our following this path of devotional service to the Lord Hari, and we fall down. Patet tato yadi. Even if we fall down, yatra kwa va bhadram abhud amushyikim. Yet there is no danger of this being successful. So there is no problem. Even if we fall down, if even if we don't make to the devotional service completely, there is no loss. There is no danger. को वार्थ आप तो भजताम स्वधर्मतः. On the other hand, a non-devotee. को वार्थ आप तो abhajatam. Abhajatam means a non-devotee. Swadharmata. On the other hand, a non-devotee, though fully engaged in occupational duties, does not gain anything. He actually does not gain anything like that. So this is something which we can understand, that devotional service uh, gives this profit, that once we are into the process of devotional service, our ultimate success is guaranteed. We are there. So that is the profit aspect of bhakti. Then coming to the next part, which is powerful. So Prabhupada writes in his purport, devotional service is not the effect of any mundane cause, nor can it be terminated by any mundane cause or permanently curtailed by any material interruption. Hmm. So devotional service is not effect of any mundane cause, nor can it be terminated by any mundane cause. What does it mean? It means that for bhakti, we don't need any material cause. Any material cause. Material cause means, for example, we have PhD, or we have a very exalted educational qualification. So just because we are very learned, we are very educated, does not mean that we will become very good devotee. No, it doesn't mean in that way. So that is what it means, that devotional service is not the effect of any mundane cause, nor can it be terminated by any mundane cause. Neither that if, for example, we are somewhat less qualified, or we have failed in some of our material endeavors. Maybe we wanted to become an engineer, or we wanted to become a chartered accountant. We could not become an engineer, or we could not become a very learned person, or we could not learn singing, or we could not learn any other material qualification. So that also is not something which can curtail our bhakti, neither by any material interruption. Even if we die in this lifetime and we have started our bhakti, bhakti does not actually depend on any material interruption also. So bhakti comes from bhakti. Bhaktaya sanjayate bhakti. So the cause of bhakti is bhakti only. So when we associate with devotees, when we come into the contact of devotional literature, that actually inspires bhakti within us. So the point what I am trying to make here is, bhakti is very, very powerful. It is not dependent on any material qualification. Anybody can practice from any position. Anybody can practice from any position. This is not the fact in other processes. For example, Gyan Yoga, or for example, Dhyan Yoga, and so on. So in order to practice Dhyan Yoga, or in order to practice Gyan Yoga, and so on, one has to be on the platform of goodness. One has to have Brahmanical qualities of truthfulness, of uh, many other Brahmanical qualities that are there, cleanliness, charity, and so on. But even if we don't have those qualities, Brahmanical qualities, if even if we have uh, at any position, at any lower birth also, or any lower denomination also, we can practice from any position. So that is the power of bhakti. And in this regard, there is a verse in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, so where Lord Krishna says, "Mam hi partha vyapashritya ye api syu papa yonayah striya vaishya tatha shudra te api yantim param gatim." So he's saying that one who was having a lower birth, be it a stri, or a vaishya, or a shudra, still they can achieve the param gatim. They can actually engage in my bhakti and can achieve the topmost destination. So bhakti is very, very powerful in that sense. Then bhakti is very, very productive. Productive means it gives very, very powerful results. It gives very productive results. What are those results? Here Srila Prabhupada is writing in the purport, there are certainly many good qualities among fruitive actors, philosophical speculators and mystic yogis. But all good qualities automatically develop in the character of a devotee. No extraneous endeavor is needed. So he's comparing it with other paths. He's saying that although we may have karmis, we may have jnana yogis, we may have mystic yogis, and so on, they may also have some good qualities. But if a devotee is there and he's practicing devotional service, then all the good qualities automatically develop in the character of a devotee. No extraneous endeavor is needed. So you don't have to specifically run after these qualities to develop and so on. If you are sincerely following devotional service, all the other qualities will also develop. And in this regard, there is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam which says, Yasyasti bhaktir bhagvati akinchana sarvair gunes tatra samasate suraha. Whoever is engaged in the akinchan bhakti of Hari, bhagvati akinchana, akinchana means no other, adanya bhakti. Sarvair gunes tatra samasate sura. So all the qualities of the demigods, of the devatas actually manifest in this person. And then harav abhaktasya kuto mahadguna. So who is not a devotee of Lord Hari, then what good quality actually he has? Manorathena sati dhavato bahi. He's simply actually acting on a manorathena asati. He's simply acting on his own whimsical philosophy, own whimsical platform of philosophy, philosophy in life, and so on. And by following that philosophy, which is anti-devotional, which is non-devotional, he's simply actually dhavato bahi. He's simply running here and there in this material world, and there is no benefit to such a person. So this is the verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. So like this, we can understand that Bhakti Yoga is very, very productive. All the good qualities are developed simply by following Bhakti Yoga. And finally, coming to the last part, which is Bhakti Yoga actually is very, very pure. And here Srila Prabhupada writes, because a devotee is not interested in any material activity, he does not become materially contaminated. He is immediately situated on the platform of transcendental life. However, one who is engaged in mundane activity cannot attain the higher stage of Mahatma. Hmm. So he's saying that because the intention of devotee is only and only to serve Lord Krishna, he has no other extra desires. Neither he wants to become famous, nor he wants to become rich. Nothing else he has in his desire. So, because his desire is very, very pure, he is not at all materially contaminated because his desire is actually pure. And if his desire is pure, he is not materially contaminated. But other paths, for example, karmis does not have a pure desire. Similarly, Gyan yogis, they don't have a pure desire. Karmis actually are interested in some fruitive result. Gyan yogis are interested in merging into the impersonal aspect of the Lord. And Dhyan yogis are interested in siddhis. So these people, the people from other paths, have some desire or the other. So they are materially contaminated. But the devotee is simply having only and only this desire to serve Supreme Lord Krishna. That is why he is actually known as Mahatma. And the others can never attain this higher stage of Mahatma. And what is the definition of Mahatma? It is given in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse number 13. It says, महात्मानस्तु मां पार्थ दैवीं प्रकृतिम आश्रितः भजन्ते ananya manaso gyatva bhutadim avyayam. So what is the definition of Mahatma? The definition is bhajanti ananya manaso. And the Mahatma is only interested in my devotional service in Ananya. Only Ananya means no other. And understanding that I am Gyatva Bhutadim Avyayam. I am actually the Lord of all the living entities. So I am the that supreme living entity, and my ananya devotional service. That is what the quality of Mahatma is there. So that is what the final glory of Bhakti Yoga Srila Prabhupada mentions in this purport. So with that, I would like to conclude this class here on text number 3. All glories to Sri Updeshamrita, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, and all glories to Srila Rupa Goswami. So any questions, takeaways and comments, maybe we can discuss now. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Very nice class.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Prabhu. I need to leave now.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So any questions, any doubts, any comments? Was the class clear?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, Ishwar Prabhu.
Really very fulfilling, and it has clarified many things about bhakti and its usage and its superiority over other type of yogas. Really very, very encouraging, and I am almost say at the stage where I don't feel like confusing the issue or creating any kind of mistrust. So I quite agree with everything that has been taught
Okay,
today
okay,
at this moment.
okay.
Thank you very much. It
So-
was a very nice class.
So has there been any personal realization or a personal experience in your own practice of bhakti that is making you to make that statement?
I think over the past the year and a half, and I think I see everything coming towards me in a positive way.
Hmm.
There is hardly any confusion or something which is distracting.
Hmm.
So I feel that things are really in my sort of vision,
Hmm.
and I am able to move toward them.
Yeah,
More clarity
more
of
clarity.
purpose.
Hmm.
No, less and less of confusion.
Yeah, yeah.
And of course, the most important thing that I am mentally very, very satisfied, relaxed. Things which used to irritate me earlier, they were no longer doing with that instantly. Of course, I have not achieved that perfect stage, but
Yeah,
definitely a better phase of life where there are considerable less irritants
yeah,
in
yeah.
day-to-day working, and the usual life that is happening around me.
Okay, okay. So thank you very much for sharing your realization. Really encourages us also, all who are present here in the sangha here. So thank you very much. So any other remark or questions by others? Okay, in that case, I think if there are no remarks or feedbacks, questions, I would like to uh, put the class to rest now. And I am almost prepared the quiz for the first 3 verses in Nectar of Instruction. And next week, most likely, I'm going to issue a quiz. In case I get delayed in the quiz, maybe we will continue the study, and we might then do the quiz in the next to next class. So most likely it is going to come to your way in the next class, but in case we get delayed, it will be in the next to next class. So kindly wait for the quiz. So thank you very much. Thanks everyone for their kind presence in the class today. Thanks a lot.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare
Hare
Krishna
Krishna.
Rakesh ji. Hare
Hare
Krishna
Krishna.
Mataji.
Hare
Hare Krishna.